Okay guys, so I don't really know where to or how to begin this video. I'm just gonna give you guys the story of what happened. Um, First off, I know we said like 2 days ago that we were gonna be taking a break. I didn't know how long the break was gonna be. I still don't know at this point. I just feel like I'm strong enough or comfortable enough to explain what happened. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So it's honestly weird, and what bothers me the most is the night before the incident happened. The night before the incident happened, I wasn't able to sleep. I was tossing and turning in bed until like 4 in the morning. I was literally dripping in sweat, and I was just thinking about my grandmother the whole time. Something didn't feel right. So that's what bothers me the most about like the whole situation, was that feeling the night before. I knew something was wrong, but she was perfectly fine up until the incident happened. But something rubbed me the wrong way that whole night, and that's what bothers me about the whole thing. So basically, the next morning, we had the maintenance guy come and fix the fan. The fan was acting up, and cool maintenance guy. Me and him were talking. He's older. We started talking about like his health problems and stuff like that, and I chimed in. I started telling him about my grandparents, that they went through like similar stuff. So we were just having a conversation about that. I kid you not. After he left, I got up on a chair to tighten up the bowl that protects the light for the fan. He left it a little loose, so I got on the chair and I was like tightening it up. As I'm tightening it up, my grandfather calls me on FaceTime, and he immediately says, "We're gonna be going to the hospital." So I obviously freak out. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He tells me, "Your grandmother fell down the stairs." Now the stairs she fell down, they weren't stairs inside the house. They are concrete stairs in our backyard. Like, you guys can imagine how hard concrete is. We didn't see her fall down. Like, my grandfather didn't see her fall down or anything. He was actually inside the house and heard like a stumble and like kind of like a bang, but he thought it was the garbage cans falling in the backyard because it was windy that day. So we don't know how many how many stairs she fell down. We're assuming 3, 4 stairs, like the just based on where she had hit the cement on the ground. Obviously there was like blood there, so we're thinking she fell down like 3 or 4 flight. I keep saying flight. She keeps falling down. She fell down 3 or 4 stairs, and then she hit the concrete at the bottom. Doing so, but back to the FaceTime call. I'm sorry that this is all over the place. So my grandfather tells me, "Yeah, we're going to be going to the hospital. She fell down the stairs." Like I said, they were concrete stairs. There was already a cop at the scene. He grabbed the phone from my grandfather and was telling me, "She's fine. Don't rush over here. Take your time. She just looks like she broke her nose." That's really it. Now, my anxiety's all over the place. My heart is like beating crazy. He's telling me not to rush, but obviously I did. I live like 15 minutes away, so I sped over there as fast as I could. We get there, the ambulance is already there. They already had put her in the ambulance, and they were just about to drive off with her. So I followed the ambulance. They had to stop like 2 or 3 times on the way to the hospital because apparently she was throwing up in the ambulance. So they kept coming in and out of the truck. They had like 2 guys in with her in the truck. The driver came out. He was speaking to me because I kept asking, "Why are we stopping?" He was explaining to me that she's throwing up. That's kind of normal when people hit their head. They're disoriented, they get dizzy, so they start throwing up. She was also talking, she wasn't she wasn't making sense, basically, to say the least. You would ask her questions and she would say something completely different. Like, I think my grandfather tried asking her, "Where does it hurt? Where did you hit yourself?" And she just started calling out, she called out my name. She called out my sister's name. We end up finally getting to the hospital. I had to wait maybe like 20 minutes to 30 minutes before they actually let me back into the emergency room area where I can meet with my grandfather and we can just be with her. So we were in the trauma department because she had some head trauma, but they were asking us questions and stuff like that. This isn't the first time she's fell, but this is definitely the first time it was this serious. She's had light falls in the past, but nothing that would even make it close to even going to the hospital or even thinking about going to the hospital. She would just like literally fall. We thought it was just, you know, her age. She does have blood pressure problems, so sometimes her blood pressure would get low, and that would be the cause of, like, you know, the light fall or like the little stumble. But she takes medication for that. Grandfather checks her blood pressure every single day, but something was off. We knew it was something more than just like her blood pressure and, like, you know, her age. So they went to go get a CAT scan that same morning that she fell, oddly enough. Just to find out what's going on with her head. They wanted to do a CAT scan of the brain. As we're in the trauma department and they're trying to stabilize her, because it was honestly very scary. I'll get to that point. But while we're in the trauma department trying to handle all that, my grandfather gets a call from the doctor that she went to go see that morning for her CAT scan, for her checkup. And my grandfather had explained to her doctor that she fell and that we're in the trauma department in the emergency room right now. And, you know, obviously the doctor was devastated as well. He's like, I just saw her, she was just fine. But as far as the results of the CAT scan of that morning, he said that he sees a little tiny, I'm just going to call it a speck, because I'm not no medical person. I'm not going to get into the details, and I don't want to say anything wrong. But there's like a little tiny speck of something that didn't seem right. Very, very, very minimal. He said, I think that maybe in the previous months she might have had a mild heart attack, a mild stroke. And that is the reason why she's been like stumbling every now and then, and like her left side is like kind of weak. So it kind of like started making sense. So we thought the reason she had fell down the stairs this time was because she might have had a stroke or a mild heart attack again, and that caused her to just faint and hit the ground. So onto the scary part, which was when they were, you know, they brought her into the emergency room. They're trying to stabilize her. They're trying to figure out what's going on with her, do some scans and all that. They took her to get a CAT scan. Her head again showed the same speck as the one in the morning. They compared the one from her doctors to the one they took at the hospital, and it said it's relatively the same. They just didn't know if it would stay like that, because, you know, her head is getting swollen and all that, because being that she fell, she ended up getting a facial fracture on this side of her face. She has a spinal fracture on two parts of the top of her spine, and a fracture on like the lower end of her spine. So she has fractures all over the place. Her face was like really, really swollen. And the scariest part was when they're trying to stabilize her, they're trying to give her all these meds for, you know, pain, her IV and stuff like that. She wasn't reacting well with the pain medication. Her blood pressure ended up dropping really, really low, like every couple of minutes. I'm talking about, it was extremely high. I'm talking like 200 over, I forgot the bottom number, but it was like really high, and it dropped down to like 180, then 160, 120, 80, 60, 40. It was dropping dramatically. And I'm seeing that, I'm watching the machine, and I'm watching like every couple of minutes her blood pressure is just dropping and her heart rate is increasing. Her heart rate was like 120 beats a minute. That's insane. So as I see her stuff starting to drop and her heart rate going up, I'm like something's not okay. So I run out of the room and I grab any doctor that I could find. So I ended up grabbing a doctor. The doctor basically suctioned all the blood that she was like letting go from her mouth, because they did have to incubate her. She did have, like, you know, the breathing tube. She had that in her. That was just for precaution. Her lungs were working fine, but that was just precaution. So, you know, he suctioned all the fluid out of her mouth. He ended up doing something with the pain med. I think he like lowered the dosage by a lot. He ended up giving her another medication that would make her blood pressure go up. It went back up. Again, this is a complete random doctor that I pulled from the side. This is not even his patient. He was just helping me, as a doctor should, but I'm very grateful for that doctor. So we ended up getting her semi-stable. They ended up sedating her so she can relax and, just get her at a good heart rate and blood pressure. After that, they were trying to see if they can take her up to the ICU once they stabilized her and all that. But again, right when they were about to do that, her blood pressure started to drop again. So at this point, I have a bunch of negative thoughts in my head. I'm sorry for the break, guys. I'm trying to get myself together. But yeah, I kept having negative thoughts in my head. I'm like, this isn't looking good. So the doctors, they kept on, working with her, trying different things. Her blood pressure ended up going back up to being, somewhat stable. But her blood pressure has to show consistent, basically it has to be at a good range for a good hour before they can move her up to the ICU. She ended up doing that. They ended up moving her to the ICU, but before that, when they were trying to stabilize her and her blood pressure was being a problem, the doctor told me that they would have to do, I think it was called an E-line, or I don't know, I think that's what it was called, an E-line, where basically they put a line in your main artery to monitor your blood pressure by the second rather than every couple minutes. So we had to sign a consent form for that because there obviously are risks with that. There is risk of like infection. There's risk of poking a lung apparently, and if you poke a lung, the lung can collapse, and then that's going to affect her breathing. But it was either right here or down in the groin area, but in the groin area there is a much higher risk of infection. So my grandfather and I, we decided to just keep it up here, and we signed the consent form. So they prepped her, they got everything together, and basically, to say the least, the doctor was attempting to put the line in. She said I was able to get to the artery, but I wasn't able to get the line in. But she was like, as I noticed that I was doing it, her blood pressure started going back up to where it needed to be. So the doctor was like, I immediately just stopped right there because after 3 attempts, I wasn't able to get it, and I saw her blood pressure going up. She said, I just decided to stop it right there. There's no need for it. If it were my parent, I wouldn't do it to my own parent, basically is what she said. So she basically patched her up. There was no need for the line anymore, thank God. Then from there, she showed consistent blood pressure for about an hour. They ended up taking her up to the ICU. And she's been in the ICU for the past 3 days. And honestly, at this point, guys, it's honestly just a waiting game. The doctor said that as far as her fractures all over her spine, face, that there seems to be no need for surgery anywhere. So that's honestly good news, thank God. She does have to wear a neck brace for right now. We don't know how long she's still going to be in the hospital. She's still like in and out of it. She hasn't really woken up per se, so technically she's been asleep since, today is Tuesday, she's been asleep since Friday. They took the sedation off of her. They ended up just leaving the painkillers on her because obviously she's probably in a crazy amount of pain. We told the doctor that we think she's not going to wake up if she has this painkiller on, so they reduced it. As they reduced it, she started opening up her eyes, I think like a half hour after that. She would open them like slightly, and then she would like go back to sleep basically. She is moving all of her limbs, both arms, both legs, so that was a good sign off the jump. She's been doing that for the past couple of days, so we know that she's okay to move. But it's just a matter of getting her to wake up. And, as I said, we took the dosage down on the painkiller. She started opening up her eyes a bit. The doctor said, I want to take her off the painkillers for an hour, just completely on nothing, and see how that goes. So he ends up doing that. A half hour into that hour, she ends up opening up her eyes more, and she starts moving more, and she's listening to commands. She's squeezing my mom's hand. She's moving the arm that we tell her to move. If you guys hear the shower, that is Janice. I let her sleep in today, and she's getting ready now because she's been up with me, night and day. But yeah, she's been listening to commands here and there. She wakes up slightly, and pretty much that's that. As far as this morning, the doctor ordered that she's been breathing on her own So there's no need for the breathing tube. So they're going to discuss if she really needs the breathing tube or not. They're going to monitor her breathing a little more, but her lungs are at 100%. They've always been. So they might take the breathing tube out and just leave, you know, like the hose that they put like right here and it goes behind her ears. They might just put that on. They also cut her off the painkillers completely. She is not on any painkillers as of this morning, and we're going on about almost 3 hours without painkillers. My grandfather called me not too long ago, and she opened up both of her eyes, and she was actually blinking and like looking around and stuff like that. And she was moving, so it looks like overall we are heading in the right direction. That's really it, guys. I mean, at this point, the doctor even told me when I was at the hospital yesterday, he's like, it's just a waiting game. He said, you know, we're older people, whenever there's like head trauma, it may take them a couple of days to wake up, rather than someone who's young, it may take them a couple of hours. So he said at this point, it's just a waiting game. Take it day by day. But he was like, overall, we are heading in the right direction, just very, very slowly. But he was like, overall, it's good. There's nothing to worry about. They ended up taking chest x-rays of her just to monitor her lungs again. Chest x-rays came back good. They did multiple CAT scans on her again to make sure that her head hasn't changed. Everything stayed the same, so that's great news. There's no brain bleeding or anything like that. So overall, everything's heading in the right direction. My goal at this point, or my wish, is to have her home by Christmas. Last thing I want to say, closing out this video, is I've seen all the comments, all the DMs. I've got friends that texted me even though I said not to. I appreciate it, I really do. All the comments that you guys left and the prayers, it goes a long way. Reading your guys' comments changed my I guess, I don't know if it's mental health or just, I guess, my state of mind, because I was thinking very negative. I was very hopeful, but the way everything had started, I was thinking very negative. But you guys changed that a lot. I think that's really all there is left to say, guys, at this point. Like I said, it's just a waiting game. We're going to see what happens. I honestly can't thank you guys enough. One, for understanding, and two, for supporting me and my family during this time. I think that's really it. That's all I have to say. Overall, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Looks like things are heading in the right direction.